There's something we love to call coincidence, like it's just some statistical glitch. But maybe that's just a fancy word for I wasn't paying attention. Because sometimes, rare moments, strangely perfect, reality feels like it's responding. Quietly, but unmistakably. Like someone read your thoughts and sent a sign. A song that plays at the exact moment. A number that keeps showing up for no reason. A random meeting on a random street that changes the entire course of your life. You might pretend you didn't notice, but some part of you knows that wasn't just chance. And that's where things start to get uncomfortable. We live in a world that teaches us if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. But what if we've been using the wrong ruler all along? In this video, you're going to dive deep into a phenomenon that's been called crazy, miraculous, superstitious, and is now being studied in top universities by neuroscientists, psychologists, and quantum physicists. It's not magic. It's a hidden code linking consciousness, emotion, and reality. And understanding it might be the key to unlocking a part of life you didn't even know was locked. So if you've ever felt like the universe was trying to tell you something, maybe it actually was. Hit subscribe, turn on the notifications, because this is way beyond the kind of content you're used to. We've all been trained to think the world runs on logic, cause and effect. If something happens, there has to be a measurable reason. But what if that's just the visible surface of a much deeper system? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that have no direct causal link, but feel impossibly precise. He believed these moments weren't just random events, but clues, messages, mirrors reflecting the state of our inner world. The thing is, he wasn't alone. Across time and cultures, from ancient shamans to modern physicists, there's been a recurring realization: reality doesn't just happen to us. We are part of a dynamic feedback loop with it. So here's the question: is life actually random, or have we simply been taught to ignore the signs? Because once you start to pay attention, it's hard to unsee. You'll notice the patterns, the emotional shifts that precede events, the internal decisions that mysteriously affect your external world. The invisible network connecting thought, emotion, and outcome. In this video, we're going to break all of that down, step by step, not with wishful thinking, but with grounded insights backed by emerging science, ancient systems, and real-life examples. By the end, you'll see synchronicity not as an exception to the rules of life, but as the very architecture of how reality works. So tell me, have you ever experienced something that felt too perfect to be coincidence? Drop it in the comments below and get ready, because this is where everything starts to click. For most of your life, you've been told that events are disconnected, that the universe is indifferent, that your thoughts, your feelings, your personal energy have zero impact on what happens out there. But let's be honest, has that story ever really felt true? There's a quiet discomfort in that version of reality, a sense of emptiness, because if everything is random, then nothing really matters. And if nothing matters, then why try? Why care? Why hope? That story of a mechanical, accidental universe has been pushed hard, not because it's correct, but because it serves a purpose. It keeps you compliant, predictable, plugged into systems that rely on your disconnection from the truth. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Randomness is a myth, a story, and it's one of the most dangerous lies you've ever been told. Let's start breaking it down. Imagine you're walking to work. You never take this side street, no reason to. But today, something pulls you, an urge, a subtle nudge, and so you turn. 10 minutes later, you hear that the main route you usually take had a serious accident. You missed it, barely. Was it luck, or was it a whisper from the system? This isn't just philosophical musing. These moments, these precise deviations happen to everyone. And when you begin to track them, you'll notice they're not rare. They're frequent and always significant. Why don't we see them more often? because we've been trained to dismiss them. From a young age, school teaches you to value logic over intuition, to trust numbers, not feelings, to believe only in what can be replicated in a lab. But here's the thing. Life isn't a lab. It's a living, breathing matrix of dynamic interactions. And your consciousness is not some observer stuck behind your eyes. It's part of the system. Let me ask you this. Why do people talk about gut feelings that save their lives? Why do entire cultures, from tribal shamans to Taoist monks, build their decision-making around invisible patterns? Because they understood something we've forgotten. In the West, Carl Jung tried to bring this back. He called it meaningful coincidence, synchronicity. He wasn't saying everything is magical. He was saying there's a second layer to reality, a hidden operating system, one that responds to your inner state. He kept private journals. In them, he wrote about synchronicities showing up with mathematical precision. Events that couldn't possibly be explained by chance, yet occurred again and again, with such emotional clarity and timing that they shattered the illusion of randomness. But here's where it gets deeper. Synchronicity doesn't just mean weird coincidences happen. It means your internal world affects your external experience, that what you believe, feel, focus on, fear, or hope for creates resonance patterns, frequencies, that interact with the quantum field of possibility. This isn't New Age fluff. This is physics. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called entanglement. Two particles, once connected, stay connected, no matter how far apart they are. If one changes, the other changes instantly. No delay, no signal, just instant communication across space. Now scale that up. What if your thoughts entangle with your environment? What if your state of consciousness entangles with the trajectory of events? Sounds wild? Then meet Jacobo Grinberg, the Mexican neuroscientist who went beyond theory. He conducted experiments showing that meditation could literally alter physical systems, that human consciousness could create coherence or chaos in nearby quantum fields. His lab measured it. Meditators influenced machines, not with buttons or switches, but with intention. Not after the fact, but sometimes before they even saw the machines. Grinberg called it the neuronal field, a vibrational matrix connecting mind and matter. It worked across time, across distance, across the usual rules. But just as his research reached its peak, he vanished. No explanation. Gone. Coincidence or suppression? Because what he proved threatens everything the current system is built on. See, when you believe you're separate from reality, you give up your power. You become a passenger. But when you realize your inner world is shaping the outer world, in real time, you wake up. And that awakening is dangerous to systems of control. Governments, corporations, even educational institutions. They need you disconnected. They need you reactive, not reflective, afraid, not aligned. Because a population that understands synchronicity understands responsibility. They stop consuming blindly. They start creating intentionally. This is why ancient knowledge systems were systematically erased, burned, buried, rebranded as mythology. But some pieces survived, like the I Ching, the ancient Chinese oracle system. It doesn't predict the future like a magic trick. It decodes the pattern of the moment. Every moment it teaches carries a particular energetic configuration, a signature. And by reading it, you can see the direction life is flowing, like sensing the current before stepping into a river. The I Ching works by randomness, coin tosses, or sticks, but always reveals a deeply personal message. Why? Because the randomness isn't random when consciousness is involved. Your focus, your intent, collapses probability into meaningful form. The random becomes resonant. Let that sink in. Even the chaos obeys structure when you're awake. The ancient Egyptians knew this too. Their hieroglyphs weren't just letters, they were symbolic technologies, each one embedded with layered meanings. Triggers, tools for altering consciousness. When initiates walked through sacred temples, they weren't reading stories. They were activating states. That's what symbols do. They talk directly to the subconscious, to the part of you that knows without needing a 5-step explanation. And guess what? You're surrounded by them every day. You just forgot how to read the language. Repeating numbers, dreams, animals that cross your path at specific moments, glitches in conversations, unexpected delays that lead to breakthroughs. These aren't noise, they're signals. But most people never notice them. Why? Because noticing requires stillness. Stillness isn't just sitting in silence. It's presence, the capacity to observe without reacting, the ability to listen to the moment without rushing to label or dismiss it. Synchronicity speaks in whispers, not shouts, and when your mind is constantly on TikTok, emails, to-do lists, comparisons, the signal gets lost in the noise. But when you pause, when you breathe into the now, you'll start to feel it. That gentle tug, that emotional click, that strange clarity that says, this matters. This is how the universal intelligence speaks to you, through symbols, through moments, through emotions, through resonance. So what do? How do you start living with this awareness? You begin by trusting your own experience. You notice the patterns. You write them down. You reflect, not to rationalize, but to recognize. And you stay open, curious, humble. Because the more you notice, the more you'll notice. And then life starts arranging itself around you. Not in some mystical fantasy way, but in a structured, predictable, elegant dance. Synchronicity becomes your compass. Not every moment is clear. Not every sign makes instant sense. But the more you walk the path, the more aligned the path becomes. You'll meet the right people, hear the right words, get the exact insight you needed, often in the most unexpected way. And you'll realize something that no textbook can teach you. You were never disconnected. You were just distracted. The more you start noticing the patterns, the more they show up. But this is where most people get it wrong. They think synchronicity is just a sign from the universe, a spiritual wink, a mystical breadcrumb. That's only the surface, the shallow layer. The truth goes way deeper, and it's more disruptive than it seems. Synchronicity is not a sign, it's a system. A living, responsive system that reacts in real time to your emotional frequency, your silent intentions, your internal atmosphere. You're inside it right now, and it's reading you. Every thought, every decision, every emotional pulse you send out creates ripples. These ripples move, they interact, they shape outcomes, and they always come back. Sometimes today, sometimes months later, but they always return. And here's the shift that changes everything. Your emotional state is the interface. It's like a screenless keyboard. You're not typing with words or plans, but with your frequency, with your internal coherence. Modern science is finally catching up. The Heart Math Institute has shown that the human heart emits an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond the body. And this field isn't static. It changes depending on how you feel. When you're in fear, anger, anxiety, the field becomes chaotic. When you feel gratitude, peace, love, the field becomes coherent, harmonized. And this field doesn't just stay around you. It communicates with people, with animals, even with machines. They ran tests. 2 people in different rooms, both hooked up to brainwave monitors. One was meditating calmly. The other was just sitting. After a few minutes, their brainwaves began to sync up. No words, no touch, just resonance. What does this mean? It means your emotional state is not private. It radiates, and it shapes the reality around you, not metaphorically, but physically. That's the real nature of synchronicity. It's not about luck, it's about alignment. It doesn't respond to your conscious wishes. It responds to your actual energy, to how you really feel. Especially when you're alone, especially when you're not performing for anyone. This is why synchronicity amplifies when you're moving with curiosity. When you're not just waiting for life to deliver, but responding to tiny nudges. That sudden urge to take a different route, to message someone without a reason. To say yes to something that makes no sense, but feels right. Those micro movements send a signal. They tell the system, I'm present, I'm listening, I trust, and the system responds. The more you move in authenticity, the more precise the patterns get. People show up, ideas drop in, words arrive in your head like someone whispered them. But let's be clear, synchronicity isn't always comfortable. It doesn't only bring joy and light. Sometimes, it brings collapse, separation, a harsh wake-up call. Why? Because this isn't a wish fulfillment machine. It's a feedback system. If you're vibrating from fear, scarcity, confusion, that's what the patterns will echo. Not to punish you, but to show you, to help you shift. Because the universe doesn't give you what you want, it mirrors what you are. So if you want different signs, you have to broadcast a different signal. That shift begins inside. You don't need a new job, a new city, or a new relationship. You need a new emotional foundation. And it's not about forcing positivity. It's about choosing alignment, choosing coherence, choosing to feel before you act, to listen before you assume, to trust before you see the outcome. Because emotion is the code language of this system. It doesn't understand excuses or strategies. It responds to states of being. When you choose peace, that's a command. When you choose compassion, that's a recalibration. And the system adjusts around you, not immediately, not in the way your mind expects, but always in the way your soul understands. Now here's something almost nobody talks about. Technology as a carrier of synchronicity. Sounds odd, right? But think about it. Your phone, your feed, your music app, they're part of the same system. Ever thought about something and then saw a video about it? Ever heard a song by accident that hit you so deeply it cracked something open? Was it just the algorithm, or was the algorithm a vehicle? Because synchronicity isn't limited to dreams or spiritual moments. It shows up in code, in glitches, in updates, in delays. Whatever tool the system has, it will use. That means your phone is not just a distraction machine. Sometimes it's an amplifier. And that's where things get strange. The more you become aware of the system, the more responsive it becomes, the more precise, the more direct, the more intimate. Not because the universe changed, but because your signal got cleaner. You tuned in. So how do you live inside this awareness without losing your mind? Simple. You slow down. You pay attention to what shows up when you stop rushing. You listen to your intuition, not like it's magic, but like it's your first language. You stop needing everything to make sense before you act. And you start trusting that emotion isn't the enemy of reason. It's the operating system of reality. Because once you realize you were never alone, never disconnected, everything changes. You stop chasing signs. You start being the signal. And then, life stops testing you. It starts speaking to you in every whisper, in every delay, in every perfectly imperfect moment. But here's the thing no one tells you. The moment you start living with this awareness, truly paying attention to the patterns, honoring the pull of your own intuition, something unexpected happens. Reality speeds up, not in a chaotic way, but in a kind of intelligent acceleration. Pieces move faster, alignments come quicker. It's as if life stops testing you and starts co-creating with you. But then, a new question arises. If your emotions shape the signals and your focus sculpts the path, Then what happens when you start feeling things that don't belong to you? When the fear you carry isn't yours? When the doubt, the heaviness, the disconnection comes from somewhere else? There's another layer to this system, one that almost nobody talks about, and it changes everything you thought you knew about intuition, emotion, and influence. So if you feel like something's been off lately, and you can't explain why, trust that. You're not imagining it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.